see me? Oh, wait.
There you are.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. So, welcome to the Disability Guru. I'm Dr. Michelle Hernandez, and today we have the pleasure and honor of talking with Jim and Nicole Newman on their documentary, Crip Camp, that I've been bragging about. I want to ask, I know everybody, like so many people are talking about this documentary, and I feel like it's really important. I want to know the backstory. Like, I love the film, but how did this come about? Like, did you just like sit down one day and be like, I'm going to do a documentary? Like, can you tell the audience a little bit about what seeds got planted and how it came to manifest into this wonderful masterpiece?
Should I begin, Nicole, or you want to tell the
Yeah.
story?
Yeah, and thank you for the
Okay.
masterpiece thing. That's nice.
Yeah, that kind of made me hold my breath for a second. So thank you very
That's
much,
true.
Dr. Hernandez. I really appreciate that a lot. I a couple of things all came into play. I've known Nicole for a long time. I've been working in documentary film as a mixer and sound editor, and I had a company, and I had the pleasure of getting to know Nicole through 3 of her films that I was the mixer on, and that's over the course of about 15 years or so. And and also as just somebody who continued to work in documentaries, I was starting to get a little bit more kind of inspired or incensed or something in the middle of all of that there weren't films that I felt really did our community justice, that weren't really telling the inside story. And so Nicole and I had lunch one day as she was wrapping up her last film, The Revolutionary Optimist, and I really have just loved her work, and I was pitching her some ideas about, there's a lot of stories out there around disability, and I was pitching ideas about all sorts of stuff, and then kind of casually on the way back to the building where we were working out of, I said, but you know what I've always wanted to see is a documentary about my camp.
Yeah, that is so amazing. And what about you, Nicole? Yeah.
Well, I mean, for me, like, to be honest, I mean, I was excited about the idea of working with Jim, and I was really intrigued to think about the fact that there was this whole world out there of disability stories that hadn't been explored, and also that I didn't know too many other documentary directors or filmmakers telling disability stories from their own perspective.
Right. Yeah.
Jim had literally introduced me to the idea that there was disability community and there was disability culture. Like, he literally said that to me. We are a community. We have a culture, and so it was all very intriguing to me. But when he said that about his summer camp, my first response was like, oh boy, because a lot of people have like a magical special experience with their summer camp, but that doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be a feature-length documentary film, right?
Exactly.
But then he started telling me about Jim, and he told me, it's down the road from Woodstock. It's this crazy hippie utopia. We got to smoke dope with the counselors. And I'm trying to paint a picture in my own mind of this, and that even just that experience, you're like, what? And then he said, but I have this theory that there was something about the freedom of that camp and the community that was created there that had something to do with the exodus of folks out to Berkeley, eventually, and then and the sort of sparking of the disability rights movement. And I have, I was a history student, and I've made other history documentaries that Jim has worked on, and so that was like a really intriguing thing to me. Like, could you use the summer camp as sort of a window into understanding a civil rights movement that people didn't know about?
Right.
And so we started working on it, but Jim had initially said, well, maybe I could co-produce with you and you could direct it. But when I was thinking about what was really unique about this whole
Uh-huh.
concept or idea, I thought,
Yeah,
really, like what's exciting is if this film is made by a person with a disability who lived this life.
exactly.
So we
Yes.
decided to do it together, and it was a great decision. I mean, it's been one of the most incredible, rewarding projects of my life.
And how did you have all that footage, Jim? Like, I was watching it again yesterday, and I was like thinking, how priceless and precious is all that footage that you have? Like, I don't think I have anything like that. So did you already had that, and then you?
No,
Oh
you know,
no.
when Nicole and I were first talking, we were
Uh-huh.
thinking maybe we could do recreations, dramatic
Okay.
recreations, and wouldn't it be good if we could like find a camp setting and hire
Yeah.
actors with disabilities and
Yeah. Yeah.
to kind of show things. And but also in our earlier discussions, I had remembered that this group of hippies with early video camera technologies had showed up at camp, and that they had given me a camera to do a tour of the camp,
Yeah.
but I didn't really quite remember beyond, the word people in their
Uh-huh.
name. And
Right.
and Nicole, basically, just about every night was on the internet trying to find something, and she hit pay dirt.
It was like the holy grail,
Oh,
Hey,
wow.
what if we could find this? I'm like, Jim, you shot the tour of the, like, you're actually, your voice is leading the tour of the,
Yeah.
like, that would
Yeah.
make the whole film just like, you'll go up to another level, right? So
Right.
I finally found this little ad in the back of an old, Video Maker magazine that said, "Crabs outbreak at Camp Jened for the handicapped by the People's
Oh.
Video Theater." And I was like, Jim, it's the People's Video Theater. So then we found, who were the guys in the People's Video Theater. And we
Okay.
found the name of one of them on the board of like a radical bookstore in the Mission District in San Francisco. And so
Wow.
they said, well, we're not going to give you his contact info, but you could leave him a note. And then at the next board meeting, we'll give him the note. So we left
Oh.
a note. And like a month and a half later, we get this email. We were sitting together in Jim's office working on the film. And at
Oh,
that point, we didn't
cool.
know if we were going to have footage. And we get this email from Howard Gutstadt, who was one of the people there at the camp shooting the footage. And he said, yeah, we have 5.5 hours of footage. We haven't seen most of it, but we're midway. He was in San Francisco. We were in.
Oh.
He said, we're midway through digitizing it, and we need funding to be able to complete the digitizing. So
Okay.
Jim and Sarah, Jim's wife, who's our other producer, who's an amazing fundraiser,
Mhm.
pulled together some funding, and we finished the digitizing at the Bay Area Video Coalition, and then literally we just got this big old hard drive of all of that footage shipped to us, and sat down and watched it all together. And nobody had seen most of those scenes that you saw in the film, since they were.
Right. Oh, wow. Okay. How did that feel for you to watch that, Jim, like after all these years?
It was so surreal. I mean, literally, it's kind of like looking through like a viewfinder, literally, of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
of my past
Yeah.
in black and white, and
Right.
but bringing to life that place again
Yeah.
for me was just amazing. It's like it was so kind of visceral. You could kind of feel the mosquito bites coming back, and and could feel how warm it was, and there were people that I missed terribly,
Yeah.
that all of a sudden I could see, and I hadn't seen. I hadn't seen any of this footage, so to see like my friend Jack Eckelman joking about how there's a lot of we got the crabs on the run. We're gonna have a clam bake and stuff, and Jack was just such a funny guy, and also a real help to me when I was an adolescent. That I mean, you just don't get a chance to go back and kind of experience that, and so it was very, very bittersweet and wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really like the way too that you everybody talks about. And you pointed out really good in the documentary that, yeah, people have different issues, different disabilities, but who didn't have something wrong with their body? It was like normalized. You didn't feel like a freak, you know? And I think I've had people watch this, and I've had so many people say, like, why don't they teach this in schools? You know, like, I've even had high schoolers in this district watch it, seniors, and they're like, okay, we barely learn about civil rights, and this isn't shown, like, we knew nothing about this. And so it's something that's so necessary and so profound that changes people's perspective. But what, like, another thing, what would you like to put in there that didn't get put in there? What are some of the stuff that you left out, or that you wish that you would have had time, you know, more time? Because I know you had to condense it all. I just kept thinking, oh my gosh, this could go on. This could be like episode after episode.
Yeah, we
So,
fantasize about this, the scripted, you know, series version of this, where we can really get into like a lot of the strands of stories that exist that are really rich and amazing that we couldn't follow. And, you know, one of them that was really fascinating that we filmed and didn't include, but we loved, was the story of the African-American counselors who were recruited from, you know, Alabama to come and work at the camp. And
yeah.
and what's really amazing about that story is that Gene Morgan, who was one of the counselors, you see photographs of him in the film.
Yeah.
But he himself was actually a foot soldier in the civil rights movement, and he worked, you know, he was just, you know, in the same rooms with Martin Luther King, you know, as a teenage boy,
Wow.
and he was in the Children's March. And so, you know, there was this kind of really interesting crossover between the kind of civil rights movement that those guys were a part of and the movement that was beginning at Jened. And Jim and I were really moved and interested in the fact that Jened is kind of a utopia where everyone, no matter who they were, what was going on with them, was included.
Yeah.
That was a really liberating experience for these guys too, you know.
Yeah.
And so we hint at that in the film a little bit, but there's certainly a lot more to explore there, and some really amazing footage actually of a trip we made to Alabama.
Really?
To visit them. Yeah.
That's so cool. So,
Yeah.
I mean, is that like what's next now? I mean, I know you guys have like gotten the word. It's funny because I hear myself going, man, this is about inclusion before inclusion was cool. Okay, this is like pre, you know, PC. So it really shows that it can happen. It's possible. It has. People have done it. So what's on the horizon for you guys project wise? What are you guys doing next?
Well, we're certainly looking at there's some interest in maybe seeing whether there can be an adaptation of the documentary into something narrative, and so we're, you know, in talking to some folks about that, and we're really kind of busy right now and focused on an impact campaign.
Oh yeah.
That's really quite substantial and wonderful.
Yeah, you want to talk about that? You're talking about Crip Camp, the virtual experience starts
Yeah.
tomorrow, right?
That's
I
part of
know
it.
I'm already. Oh well, yeah, because I don't think people know about that, and it starts tomorrow, and you send it out to like tons of places. So you want to give a little snippet about what that's going to entail, because that's going to be super cool.
I mean, it's really cool. We are really excited about it. I actually I have butterflies in my stomach thinking about it because, you know, basically what we did is we hired these incredible activists, Stacy Park and Andrea Levant, to run our impact campaign, and we felt really strongly that we wanted the impact campaign to be a platform for the disability justice movement, and like what you were saying before about it's before inclusion was cool. Well, like, you know, that's kind of what we wanted. We hoped that the, you know, Netflix, Obama kind of platform would be able to give folks who are working kind of at the cutting edge of the disability justice movement and the next generation of activists a platform to be able to bring more people into the movement and then train them. So the series that's starting tomorrow is like a 16 session series of organizing and training, and it covers everything from kind of internalized ableism and disability culture and pride, and there's pieces on sexuality, and then there's like practical you know, instruction around organizing and movement building. And that's bringing together people. You know, we didn't really know who would be signing up for it, but we're thrilled with like the large number of people who
how many people have you got signed up for it? How many people? I was wondering how many people signed up for it. A lot,
like thousands, and from all over the world, you know.
That's the cool thing.
So that's so cool. And people are like, can we translate it into Portuguese, and can we translate it into Spanish? And so that feels like I'm almost unprecedented in some way, you know.
Yes,
which
you
is
are.
Really exciting.
Well,
and go ahead.
The great thing is that all of these will be captured and then wind up online.
Okay.
For people if they miss them. And and we are, because of the strong interest from Bolivia and Brazil, we are looking into the costs and how we can get it also at least subtitled or captioned in Portuguese and in Spanish. Because, I mean, if anybody knows about the political movement in Bolivia, those people have paid with lives and blood and incredible hardship to try to get this kind of supports. They really, you know, that so much that what we actually, a lot of us in the United States do have.
Right.
So, you know, you know, to have an international reach for your project and to be of use to the people working all over the world is like, oh my, how do you wrap your head around that?
I know. It's like amazing. And so Rusted Spoke Productions, is that your production company, Jim?
It's ours.
Oh, it's okay. And so just, you know, to wrap up, I think, what advice would you give the listeners? You know, I know there's a lot of disabled people in the disability community right now, writing books and doing all the Zooms and documentaries, but what advice would you give to somebody that wants to tell their story about their disability, and maybe not Camp Jened, but, you know, something else significant? I get asked that all the time, and I do not know what to tell people, but you guys are the experts. So can you give the listeners a little advice on what to do?
My advice is to look around you and see what other people are doing.
Yeah.
And that you don't have to make a Netflix documentary to tell your story.
Right.
And for it to be impactful.
Exactly.
And that to be honest and to I mean, the opportunities today and what's acceptable have just blown up because of the shelter in place that all of us have been involved in. Whereas before, having some kind of a podcast that was just showing Zoom would not be acceptable. It's now the kind of the accepted norm and very understandable. So I think that it's made it more accessible to people. It's made it more affordable for people to do things. And I think that we're all interested in the human condition. I think all interested in compelling storytelling, and that there's many ways to pull it off.
Yeah. I remember meeting you like 6 years ago. I think it's been over 6 years ago that I met you. And I remember I specifically asked you a question. I was like, oh, people are telling me that nobody does documentaries anymore. And you're like, well, I don't know about that, Michelle. But now I realize, I'm like, oh yeah, you're probably working on this back then. So I asked your advice 6 years ago, but now the world is completely different. What about you, Nicole? What advice would you give the listeners?
Um, I'm gonna copy something that I heard Jim say, which I think is
Oh,
wise sometimes when you're asked this question, Jim, which is like, try to like look around and find the people who you want to work with and who can help you do it. And I think, one of the really beautiful things that happened for us when we were working on the film, and
mhm.
is, we had a whole team of editors working with us. So
Okay.
sometimes it might be me and Jim and an executive producer and 2 or 3 editors all sitting around, either on Zoom or in a physical space having a conversation about the storytelling, and everyone contributing something from their own lived experience or their own
Right.
expertise. And we had that beautiful model of those people sitting around the table, the campers sitting
Yeah.
around the table in that beautiful scene in our film, to remind us that, we have to listen to each other and we have to value what everybody can bring to the equation. And I think that's the way that really great creative projects often are made, but I think people often feel a real burden to kind of prove themselves or do something on
Yeah.
their own. And I don't think
Yeah.
you need to. In fact, I think that, there's so much joy and empowerment in doing something in community with people. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, it seems like this is like so cathartic and healing on so many levels for so many people, and now the world, which is amazing. But thank you guys for being on the podcast, and just know that we love, everybody loves that film, and you brought up issues that I'm so happy you talked about that nobody else would. And going back to what Jim said, it's like, yeah, it's about being honest, being vulnerable, being authentic. I mean, it's your life, it's your disability, everybody's experience is different, but we all love that human interaction.
Well, we need to see a lot more films and a
Yes.
lot more media, and that we recognize that ours is one particular story of a group of people at a place in time. But there's hundreds
Hmm.
and hundreds of
Yeah.
stories about the modern day movement, about so many different things. And gosh, I can't wait to see what's coming down the pike from other people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be. I mean, actually, I'm excited about seeing what, who's gonna make what, and what other stories we don't, know about, or even if we know about in the community, we always be like, oh man, like instead of telling somebody I have a friend that went through this, it's like, just watch this, like, you know. It's like, how many of us like try to be allies and support one another, but all of our stories are kind of unique. So we all don't kind of fit in that cookie cutter dimension. But I want to thank you guys. I know Zoom's telling me we gotta cut off, but I really appreciate spending this time, just taking the Saturday moments to talk with me. And Nicole, it's great meeting you. And
Yeah.
now I have a face to put to the name. And Jim, I know you're busy. You're all over the place. So
It's
I'll
really great
just,
to see you again.
yeah, thank you. I'm really glad to be a part of this whole experience, and looking forward to Crip Camp tomorrow, the virtual thing. That's going to be so fun. And but yeah, just I'll keep in touch and keep track, and I'll promote your Crip Camp and tell everybody about it. But it's so happy you made it.
Well,
It
tell
gives
everybody
me,
tell everybody to go to www.cripcamp.com and get on the mailing list and look at
that's
this
right.
virtual camp that we're doing. And so thank you very much for your time.
Yeah,
No,
thank
thank
you.
you guys. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Really